This is a very simple SMTP exchange. Let me explain the notation. S being the server, C here being the client. Now in SMTP, this is the receiving mail server, and this is the sending mail server. Once the TCP connection is established, the receiving side identifies itself first. 220 hamburger.edu, status code, status phrase. Client here then would in turn tries to identify itself as well. Crepus.friends, that's the identity. And hello here is the command to allow the server to know who the client is. And then server, status code 250, everything is fine. Hello, crepus.friends. And then beginning from here, we start to see control message exchange. Client here needs to specify who the sender is and who the recipient is. So mail sender is Alice and mail recipient is Bob. So all capital here, mail from. All capital here, receive to. Okay, are special commands as well, just like the hello. So whatever comes after the columns are the mailer and the recipient. So server again are just saying, okay, good, I got it, 250. And from here on, this is the actual data exchange. Data, once again, a command. Email starts from here. Do you like ketchup? How about pickles? And it ends with a single line that has only a period. Okay, so the actual email message is only this short 2 lines. Last is here, just to close. Okay, server will say, message accepted, everything is fine. Client then issue yet another command to quit the session. Server says, all right, goodbye. Very simple. To set up connection, to do the email exchange, and to close the connection. In the email exchange, there's the control message part and then the actual data part. And that is an SMTP message exchange among the client and servers. Let's try now to telnet to an actual mail server at port 25 and see what the server will send back to us. And then we could try to type in some of these comments out and see how the server responds. So let's go to the demo mode. Now let's try telnet to a mail server at port 25. Telnet, which mail server? Actually Googled up Gmail's mail server. The name is this, SMTP, how appropriate, gmail.com, port 25. There we go. IP address being 64 something something. And this is the message coming from the server, 220. Alright, so SMTP gmail.com there is identifying itself. And then ESMTP, okay, it's saying more. I'm not quite sure what this is. Right, so E must be something and then SMTP. So this might be a special variation of SMTP, maybe the encrypted version, I'm guessing. So let's try typing up some of the comments. For example, hello, and coming from us.edu.tw. How about that? Great, seems to be working. 250, So the server is saying, ooh, at your service. That's really polite. All right. Then let's try the next comment we saw earlier, mail to. And let's have Gmail sending to Polly's email address. How about that? What is this? 530, 5.7.0. Must issue a start TLS comment first. So yeah, it does look like it's trying to establish an encrypted connection. So TLS, if you recall, is what? Transport Layer Security Support. So guessing this is probably the credential, the public key. So I'm supposed to send back the share secret key with the public key as the key to encrypt. But I don't know how to do that. So yeah, let me try it again then. Playing dumb here. polyhua@ntu.edu.tw. Let's see. No, it's not accepting it. So I have to, yeah, so maybe recipient from, yeah, Polly's Gmail address. How about that? No, it keeps bugging me saying, okay, let's do start TLS. So that's issue this command, start TLS, and see, start TLS. Oh, cool, it's accepting. That's nice. Ready to start TLS. All right, so then I suppose I need to send back the, uh-oh, I'm already out. So it seems that the establishment process there also has a time limitation. Otherwise, yes, and hacker might be able to hijack something that you have done in the middle. Interesting. So, hey, I got kicked out. So Gmail is a secure email service. Email messages are encrypted. Nice. Good to know. And so that was a demo of trying to telnet to a mail server, actual mail server. You could also try this yourself, maybe from the workstation. Okay. And just a few words about SMTP at the end. Once it sets up a TCP connection, the client there can use the connection to send multiple emails. So it runs just like the persistent connection we see in HTTP. SMTP requires text in ASCII code, very strict. And SMTP uses just a single dot in the last line, okay, to determine whether it's the end of the message. Now, if we compare SMTP to HTTP a bit more, they differ in multiple ways, but they are also similar in another way. So this is the first thing they're different. Yeah, the service sort of direction. HTTP is actually to pull objects down, but SMTP is to push objects out. Now, object here I meant email. They are similar in this way. Comments, responses, all these messages are in ASCII text format. But HTTP and SMTP are also slightly different in this way. Each object is encapsulated in a response message. So HTTP server there sends one object at a time, one object per message. But SMTP can send multiple objects in one message. That message is just having multiple parts. So for emails, that comes with an attachment, like a big PDF file after, here is the attachment, if there's anything wrong, contact me. So email, the original text at the beginning, and then additional attachments. They can be sent as a multi-part message. So multiple objects in one message versus HTTP. One object, one message. Mail message format. So there's yet another protocol that defines how the email messages should look like. So this will be the data part of the SMTP protocol message exchange. If you recall in the example earlier, there's the opening phase, some control messages being sent, and then comes the actual data before closing. So the mail messages here we're talking about is the content being sent in the data phase. All right, so these messages are not control messages for SMTP. So they are not SMTP. The mail message format is actually defined in another RFC. It's another protocol. So in that protocol, it defines the mail message format. There are two parts only. The header containing a number of header lines, specifying who the receiver is, who the sender is, and what is the subject of the communication. In the body, very simple, just the content of the communication. So note again, that I try to clarify. In SMTP, you see mail from. So this sounds like, following this command, you also tell who the sender is. Receive to, after the comment, after the column, you give the recipient's email address. So it sounds a little bit like the to line in the header line and the from line in the header line, but they are actually completely different things. These go in the data part, while these go earlier, setting up a connection ready for data exchange. And then we'll switch gear just a little bit and talk about the last part of email application. So we've talked about the flow of sending an email all the way from Alice to Bob, right? So mail access protocol runs here. Okay, so it's this part of the entire flow. SMTP that we talked about earlier only covers email exchange to the receiver's mail server. In between the receiver's mail server and the actual receiver, it's this protocol that's controlling. So what it does is to allow the receiver to retrieve email from its local server. There are three very popular mail access protocol: POP3, Post Office Protocol, IMAP, Internet Mail Access Protocol, and HTTP. These two, you can see that they are more specifically defined for the purpose, allowing a receiver to retrieve email. The functionality is also similar. First, the receiver needs to authenticate itself, authorize itself, and then begin downloading emails. IMAP, being a slightly newer version, it includes a number of other features, including, for example, we could store the email messages in a more structural way. For example, creating folders and putting certain emails in certain folders. All right. HTTP, however, is special. It's quite fashionable these days. Some of the mail service providers are asking us to use a web browser as the user agent. And then the email server there is essentially also a web server, so that it runs HTTP in the middle and treating each email as a web object. So fetching an email, fetching a web object. Okay, it's the same thing except that the content is more specifically being emails. And let's take a closer look at how POP3 works. Okay, the exchanges between the client and the server. The notation is very similar to the exchange we saw earlier in SMTP. S being the server, client is C. So there's an authorization phase and then the actual transaction phase. So authorization phase you see here, the client comments very typically being declaring the username and declaring the password. So you see here, in the authorization phase, the server says, okay, I'm ready. Client says, I'm user Bob. So the username there is Bob. Password, being hungry. All right. And server responses with either okay or negative error. It's even more simpler. All right. So okay here, okay here, okay here. Maybe with the phrase after that. And in transaction phase, this is where the emails are actually retrieved. So client sometimes say this, list. So this is to ask the servers to tell back the list of emails there are. So this is more the index of the emails, and a lot of times just containing the file size and maybe the subject line. All right. It's only until the client begin issuing comment like this, RETR. So this is for retrieving messages. So RETR1 indicates that it's retrieving this email. So this is the index of the email, the size of the email, and there could be other information. Then the server sends back the actual content of the first email, and again ends with the period, and only one period in the whole sentence. Right. The client can actually delete an email that has already been read, or in case it's a spam. All right, so DELE Very intuitive, being the delete. Quit, also intuitive, being quitting the session. All right, so retrieve an email, server sends an email, client delete an email, retrieve another email, server sends another email, and client deletes yet another email. Q and then plus OK, server says goodbye. So that's an example of POP3 exchange.